पृथिवी शान्तिरन्तरिक्षकं शान्तिर् द्यौ शान्तिर्दिशः शान्तिरवान्तर दिशाः शान्तिरग्निः शान्तिर्वायुः शान्तिरादित्यः शान्तिः चन्द्रमा शान्तिर्नक्षत्राणि शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिर्वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्गौः शान्तिरजा शान्तिरश्वः शान्तिः पुरुषः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिर्ब्राह्मणः शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः शान्तिर्मे अस्तु शान्तिः. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu, sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Asato ma satkamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya, aviravirmaheti, rudrayatte dakshinam mukham, te namam pahi nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. Peace, peace, peace. We begin today on verse number 4 on page 265. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtina matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavasthitaha. All this is pervaded by me of unmanifest form. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. It's an important verse. One of the ways in which God or the Supreme Being can be defined is He is that reality from whom all this universe has emerged. He is the source of everything, who sustains it, in whom this entire universe dwells, and into whom that entire universe returns again. So it starts from Him, He protects it, and it goes back to Him. And since it starts from Him, He is the cause of everything. And a cause is always present in an effect. That is what is meant by all this is pervaded by me of unmanifest form. It's a little bit like the tree is included in the seed, because if the seed is seen as a cause of the tree, then the tree and the seed have to be connected. The cause and effect have to be connected. So all this is pervaded by me of unmanifest form means that the entire universe cannot stand, cannot have any grounding without the presence of God. That is why sometimes God can also be defined as the ground of being. Everything exists because God exists. One way of looking at it is a clay pot will not exist if clay doesn't exist. So you need the source to be present in the effect, and the effect is dependent on the source. And that is why he says, all beings are in me, but I am not in them. So because the entire universe, all the beings in it are the effects, they emerge from God, they are present in Him, but He is not present in them. Now how would that make sense? Now, in a material object, a clay pot made of a jar or any item made of clay, clay is present in the jar, and the jar is present in a subtle form, in an unmanifest form in the clay, you could say. They say that when a sculptor starts sculpting, some of the best ones, what the rest of us see is one big block of stone. But before the sculptor begins the work, the sculptor already sees the finished product. And once that sculptor sees that finished product in a subtle way, then the job is simple. Just chip away the rest of the block. And then that sculpture, which is already present in that, emerges. So you could say that the sculpture is present in the unmanifest form in that block of stone. And of course, that stone is present in the finished sculpture as well. Now that works fine with material objects. But when we say that the entire universe and all beings came from God, they did not come from God the way a marble sculpture comes from a block of marble, or a clay pot comes from a lump of clay. In those instances, both the sculpture and the cause, they belong to the same level. They both are material. But when we say all these beings have come from God, they don't belong to the same level, because God is pure consciousness, while the entire universe is material. So the material universe emerges from God. They are present in God because they are the effect. But God, being consciousness, pure consciousness, being unattached, is not present in them. Next verse makes it even a little bit, rather than simplifying it, even more complicated. So let's read the next verse. Nacha mat sthani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhuta bhrunna cha bhutastho mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. Nor are the beings in me. Behold my divine mystery. The sustainer, though the sustainer and the protector of beings, yet myself is not in these beings. So although earlier Krishna says that they are in me but I am not in them, in the very next verse he says, but really speaking, even they are not in me. So the first statement was in a general way how we understand things are. But if you look deeply, he says, they are not in me, I am not in them. How come then, if they are not in me and I am not in them, I am their cause? So how can we say we come from God when God here says they are not in me and I am not in them? And this doesn't sound logical at all. And that is why he says, Pashyame Yogam Aishwaram. This is my divine yoga, my divine mystery. By that virtue itself, what he is saying is that the normal rules of logic don't hold here. So God is the sustainer and protector of beings. Clearly, everything comes from God. He sustains them, Srishti, Sthiti, and Pralaya. So, Sthiti, everything dwells in God, and God protects the entire universe. And yet, myself, he is not in present. Now, how would that be possible? Think about it this way. Every one of us is one of the, well, let me put it this way. The word Ishvara in Sanskrit means a ruler. And God is sometimes described as a divine ruler. Parameshwara means the supreme ruler. To some extent, we can say that every one of us is kind of small rulers, little kingdom. God controls this vast cosmic kingdom, the entire universe. That's big. But in some little way, we are petty kings, small kingdoms we have, small rulers. And so what is our kingdom? Well, our own body and mind. We cannot deny that we have some amount of control, may not be full control, but we do sustain, we take care of the body, and we protect the body, because our very existence seems to be connected with this body. So we are the sustainer and protector of this one being at least. God may be the sustainer, protector of billions and trillions of beings in the whole universe. But you and I, we are the sustainer and protector of this one being, this one physical being we call the body. But our very process of sustaining and protecting this one being, we become attached to it. We become so much attached to it that we think, well, this is me. Now, God is not just sustaining and protecting one body. God is sustaining and protecting this whole universe. How much more attached God should have been in a normal way. But he is not normal in that sense. That is why he says, Pashyame yogam aishwaram. This is my divine mystery. I sustain this whole universe. I protect this whole universe. I'm not at all attached to it. Now, don't understand the word attachment in the way that we use. By attachment is mean, let me put it this way. In order for things to interact with one another, they must belong to the same level. And as I said, if I am thirsty in my dream, I need water to quench my thirst. I can't say, oh, it's not real, it's only a dream thirst. You can't, because you're still, the pain you feel if your quench is not thirst is very real in the dream. And you need water. And you need a dream water. You cannot say, oh, it's just dream water, it's not real. No, it's this unreal dream water which will quench the unreal dream thirst. Now, you could be thirsty in your dream and there may not be water available. But maybe before you went to sleep that night, you had this one glass filled with water just next to your bed. That water is completely useless to your dream thirst. So in order for that water to be effective, so the water and the thirst must belong to the same level. Only then they can react. You could also say that our waking state water is unattached with the dream state thirst because they can't interact with one another. In that sense, God is unattached because God is just pure consciousness. And this entire universe is just material universe. So matter and consciousness cannot mix. Just like light and darkness cannot mix. If there is light, there is no darkness. If there is darkness, there is no light. If God is pure consciousness and the entire universe is matter, how can matter emerge from consciousness? And here, one more clarification. There is one point at which science, the modern science, the physical sciences, and Vedanta, or spiritual science, if you like, differ. They haven't found a meeting ground yet, and that is with regard to consciousness. In physical sciences, consciousness is seen as the result of neurological activity. So there are all this stuff happening in the brain, and that is what gives me the sense of self. That is what makes me conscious. And so consciousness understood in this way would be a very material thing. Because after all, it's a material processes in the brain producing something. The Vedantic approach is that, and by Vedanta, I don't want to narrow down the field too much. Pretty much most Eastern traditions, even Buddhism, the idea is that consciousness stands by itself. Consciousness is not the product of the brain activity. Changes in consciousness might show itself. It might have a physical counterpart, but that they have seen. When people show emotions, when people think, when different objects are brought before the mind's eye, at various stages, the patterns in the brain change. So there is some connection. What's not clear is that whether those changes in the brain produce consciousness, or it is the consciousness that manifests, depending on the object of consciousness, the changes manifest in a physiological way in the brain. But so when I'm using the word consciousness, I'm not using it in the sense of consciousness being a product of brain. I'm just using like Chaitanya. That's something that stands on its own. It's not dependent, it's free. So God, or the divine being, or the Atman, the spirit, is pure consciousness. This entire universe is material. Can consciousness come from a material entity? And the answer is no. The cause and effect must belong to the same reality. So there are then at least two kinds of causes. For instance, there is one cause is, as I mentioned already, the seed and the plant and the tree. So the seed, the plant or the tree is present in a subtle way in the seed, and it's the seed that manifests it. Or you could say yogurt. Milk is the cause of yogurt, but both are material. Both belong to the same entity. Again, your milk in the waking state cannot produce yogurt in the dream state. They must belong to the same reality. But what about the rope and snake? What about the rope that you mistake for a snake in a semi-lit room? You've got to say, what is the rope a result of? In some way, you could say that the rope is the cause of the snake. If there were no rope, then there would not be any snake, right? And yet, the rope belongs to a different level of reality than the snake. That is why you never see them at the same time, because they are not two different entities. In Sanskrit, the terms are a material cause is called upadana. Cause is karana. And material cause, the Sanskrit word is upadana karana. And a second kind of cause is vivarta. Vivarta means it's only a superimposition. There is no real change, no real transformation. And therefore, here, in the case of a rope and a snake, the rope has not actually transformed into a snake. Because the rope is still a rope. Maybe a person standing next to you who has better eyesight is still seeing the rope, but you are mistaken for a snake. So there is no real transformation. And yet, for you, something has changed. So that kind of a change, that kind of a transformation is called vivarta. So it's not real. It's not a material transformation. So when we say that God, this entire universe comes from God, is it in the sense that milk is now transformed into yogurt? And it's irreversible, really. You can't get the milk back again from yogurt. So when God, this universe comes from God, we can ask, is it only a part of God from which the universe comes, or the whole of God? Because if it were like milk and yogurt, if entire whatever stock of milk you have, you make a yogurt out of it, your milk is over. You will not find milk anymore. Everything will become yogurt. But if you just take a part of the milk and make yogurt, then you have a part of the milk remaining and the part has become yogurt. So this universe which has come from God, is it from part of God or full God? And we say, well, if it's full God, then God is not there anymore. Or if we say that only a part of God has become this universe, then, well, God is now really not full God, only 50% God maybe. That doesn't work either. And therefore, the transformation that occurs, that God is the cause of the universe, is not in the material sense. So when we say a rope is transformed into a snake, you cannot speak in terms of half a rope or full rope, because rope continues to be the rope and yet the snake emerges out of it. In the same way, God retains the fullness, the infinitude, and yet this whole universe emerges. The question that can be asked is, does the universe really come from God? The moment you put the word really, we are kind of getting into a little trouble. It's like asking, does the snake really come from the rope? You cannot say the snake doesn't come from the rope at all, because we are seeing the snake. You cannot deny it. At the same time, we know that when you switch on the light, the snake disappears. So the snake is there and is not there at the same time. Similarly, this universe has come from God. We cannot deny it. We all live in it, we move in it, we are experiencing it. And yet, first, philosophically, it's just not possible. So if it's not possible, and yet it seems to have come, therefore it's a mystery. That's what he means by saying, look at this divine mystery. Because something that shouldn't have happened, a rope shouldn't have become a snake, and yet it has become. Something has happened, and that something is this divine mystery. And through that mystery, we can see that while you and I, when we protect and sustain something, we are attached to it, but God is not attached to it, although he protects and sustains the whole universe. And he gives the example in the next verse, verse 6. Yathakasha sthito nityam vayus sarvatra go mahan tatha sarvani bhutani matsthani tyupadharaya. As the vast wind blowing everywhere ever abides in space, no, even so do all beings abide in me. So how do we dwell in God? We dwell in God just as the way wind dwells in space. In other words, for anything to exist, in anything to be even experienced, it needs space. And if something exists and you are not conscious of it, how do you know it exists? So for anything to exist, your consciousness is also important, because your consciousness affirms, your consciousness validates, your consciousness confirms that something exists. So just as wind needs space for it to exist and can go everywhere, but you cannot say the space is attached to that wind. That space would be just fine. Even if there is no wind, the space would be just fine. It's not going to say, oh my God, where did the wind go? It doesn't bother. But it's the wind that needs space. In the same way, it's we who need God. So God is not attached in the sense that a space is not attached to wind. Now, I've used the word God a lot of times in the past few minutes. One of the things that is very helpful in this discussion is that it's always good to bring back the insights to our own existence. Because the word God is tricky. Every time we use the word God, immediately tend to think of somebody dwelling somewhere up. So, what do we learn now from this, up to this point? It's this, that the Atman, the spirit in me, that's pure consciousness. Now that spirit sustains and protects this body and mind and has in the process gotten attached. It shouldn't have gotten attached. Space cannot get attached to wind, really. Can space get attached to wind unreally? I don't know whether unreally is a word, I'm just making it up. In other words, can it not really happen? And you can say, well, not really, anything can happen. So only if something happens really, we have to apply logic to it. But if something is not happening really, there is no logic. For instance, we might say to now, can I suddenly grow wings and start flying? No, not possible. But it's completely possible. If I fall asleep now, in my dream, I can grow immediate wings and fly. And it won't appear very bizarre. It'll appear completely normal. Only when you wake up next morning, you will say, oh, what a bizarre dream I had. So it is possible for me to grow wings and fly, but not really, right? In the same way, it's possible for the material universe to come from consciousness, but not really. The Atman, which is pure consciousness, should never have gotten attached to the body and mind. And it never does get attached to the body and mind. Really? No. But apparently, well, apparently anything is possible. So everything that has happened is happened apparently. In reality, right now, at this very moment, every one of us is the infinite being. We are completely free. There is no bondage. There is nothing. You are free. You don't have any duty. You don't have any responsibility. That's really. But we might say, well, that kind of seems like a good idea, but we don't feel that way right now. We don't feel that much free. We feel pretty limited. We feel very stressed out. We feel bound. We feel very mortal. We're just human beings. And what the Gita is saying is, yes, but just remind yourself, this is not very different from growing a pair of wings and flying off. Now all of this appears very normal because we are still in this big dream. If your dream every night kind of gets over in 5 or 6 hours, it depends on how long you sleep, this dream seems to be going on for quite a long time. Or maybe not. It may not be such a long time at all. You see, the time scale, the dream time scale is different from the waking time scale. So you might sleep for 8 or 10 hours, and then when you wake up, you think, well, I was asleep for only 10 hours. But during those 8 or 10 hours that you sleep, and if you dreamt in that period, that dream period is not limited to 8 or 10 hours. In that dream, maybe you have lived for, say, 10 years. And those 10 years don't go fast, like a fast forward mode. Those 10 years go with a normal speed in your dream. Only when you wake up in the morning, suddenly you realize, oh wow, in such a short time. So in other words, the time scale in the dream world and the time scale in this world are different. So this cosmic dream that we have now might seem to be like, well, it's been going on birth after birth, millions of births, like a long dream, very different from the dream I have every night. Maybe not. Maybe it was maybe 5 minutes ago, we were all Brahman. There was only Brahman, and Brahman forgot. And this this whole universe emerged. And within these 5 minutes, we have now feel that billions of births have passed. But yes, really is it possible? No. Apparently anything is possible. It's possible, therefore, to see that we are just passing from one dream to another dream. Even though we generally tend to make this distinction between waking, dream, and deep sleep, these could be seen as three dreams, and that is exactly what the Upanishad says. It begins by mentioning the three states, and later on in the Upanishad it says tatra traya swapnaha. There are three kinds of dreams: waking dream, dreaming dream, and deep sleep dream. So we are continually dreaming, even during one single night. Very rarely you will have one dream. Most people have series of dreams even within the few hours that we sleep. Most of the time we remember only, if at all, most people don't remember anything, but if at all we remember the dream, it will be one among these many dreams that we have, one which is probably more vivid, and that usually is the dream we had just before waking up in the morning. But there is no guarantee that we dream only one dream at night. So we are already seeing a series of dreams even during a single time we sleep per night. And so an event called death, we then see another dream, a dream of going to heaven, or dream of going to hell, or dream of going to Chandraloka, Suryaloka, Brahmaloka, any of these celestial worlds, or dream of being born somewhere, a dream of returning again. One dream, and none of these dreams are going to end until I wake up. So until then, we are all already living in a dream world. It's just the difference is some of the dreams are pleasant, some of them are not pleasant. So as one story I read some time back was this: one king called his maybe I could have been a Birbal story also. It doesn't matter which names are there. Anyway, so one of the things that the king asked was, can you write one statement, and that statement should be such that the same statement reading somebody can be very happy, and the same statement reading somebody can be very sad. Is it possible to have a saying which will produce joy in some and misery in others? Suppose someone were to ask you this, are you able to think of something? What? It has to be a short, crispy statement. Same statement will produce joy in some. Yeah.
My version would be Red Sox won, Yankees lost.
Huh?
Red Sox won, Yankees lost.
No, well, but I mean, it's a good idea, but I think it's still the people who are affected will be either Red Sox fans or Yankees fans. I'm just speaking I'm speaking about a statement that is universal, no matter in which part of the world, whoever reads it. So not very localized. Vikram?
You said that this is all a dream?
This is all a dream, or why would it produce joy?
Some people may be happy that it's not real.
Okay, say that again.
I said that this is all a dream. Some people may be happy that what we're seeing is not real, and other people may feel it's fatalistic. That means they may feel sad that nothing is real.
Okay. Yeah.
The statement, you are in control of everything, that's scary, and sometimes it can be exciting.
When control of everything would be scary, you think?
Yeah. Like you have a control over everything, so you're responsible for everything that happens.
Yeah. Well, good. That's a good suggestion. Any other thoughts? Good. I like both of your ideas. One other possibility would be to the story that I read, and the answer that was given there had elements of what you're saying, but the answer that was there was simply this: even this will pass away. Which is true. Nothing is permanent. Essentially, there is nothing permanent. And in Hindi, the story was in Hindi. It was said, "Ye bhi guzar jayega, ye waqt bhi guzar jayega." It means this time will also pass away. And what it means is this: If I'm very happy and everything is going fine, we would want it to continue all the time. But then you read like, oh, even this will end. Then you're going to be not very happy. On the other hand, if you're passing through a very tough time, it's like it's a very dark phase, then you say, oh, even this will end. So I don't know how I came here. How did this topic come? Any of you remember? I've lost the link of how we came here. Yes, about the dreams. So the good thing about the dreams is that since when we know that everything is a dream and then we are passing from one dream to another, and since everything is temporary, you just have to wait. Sometimes they speak about Massachusetts weather, is that, well, if you don't like the weather, just wait a minute. It can change. In the same way, if you're not happy with the way things are going on, have a little patience. There is one poem that Swami Vivekananda wrote. It's titled, Hold On Yet a While, Brave Heart. So if we just have patience, just kind of, as they say, ride the wave. Just hold on. Even if things may be tough sometime, have patience. Just hold on and things will change. But also be aware that when things are going great, enjoy that good time, but don't expect that it's like going to be all the time like that. And so in this scenario, the common sense approach, which would not be a wise approach, is don't get attached to either of them. Knowing that, well, it's going to change. It's like you're sitting by your window and you're watching, it's a windy, and there are all these clouds, and the clouds are passing. And you are just looking at those clouds, and maybe you see a beautiful cloud. It's a great formation, and you think of a poem, and you feel like singing. And it's beautiful. Great, enjoy it. But don't start weeping if that cloud passes away. It's not going to stay there forever. On the other hand, if you find a dark cloud and it's going to be raining or storm, again, have patience. It's not going to be there forever. And now that we have come out of the brutal winter, we know. We managed. It was tough, but it's great spring weather now. So nothing lasts. So now, even as you enjoy the spring weather, even this will not last. Good, it's this change will, then life itself will sooner or later teach us, if we become good students of life, is that the best approach is be present, watch everything, learn from everything, don't get attached to anything. Because if you get attached, then you stop learning. And Vivekananda used to say, learning is religion. So Sri Ramakrishna said, as long as I live, so long do I learn. So we must continue. Our learning doesn't stop after we graduate from schools. We have to be students of life. And as long as we are learning, we are growing. And as long as we are growing, we will get out of this dream. We will wake up one day. So these are the ideas that should inform our understanding of these three verses. Of what does attachment mean? What does it mean that we have emerged from God? What does it mean when Krishna says that I sustain and protect this entire universe, but I am not attached to it? As opposed to you and me, we are attached to this body and mind when we sustain and protect it. So the lesson we get is, if I'm able to take good care of my body and mind, I'm able to protect it, take care of it, and yet not get attached to it, I'm going closer to the ideal that Krishna puts before me. So that's the thing. We don't have to worry about protecting the entire universe. We don't have to worry about taking care of the entire universe. See, the word universe and the world we employ those words. But for most of us, most of the time, our own little world is a small little bubble in which we move. Our world is a very self-referential world. By self-referential, I mean only those things which are directly or indirectly related to me, which are relevant to me in some way, those belong to my world. Most other things are somewhere on the periphery. Occasionally you might see on the internet or watch the news or read about it, some distant places and things which occur kind of leave a little bit of a blip somewhere, and then very quickly you forget it if it's not directly related to you. So our own little world is our own little bubble. So we really don't have to worry about the whole universe because it is not even there in our consciousness all the time. And among this little world that we have, the world that is closest to us, the world that we are carrying with us everywhere, is this body and mind. So if we can understand how to deal with this little world I'm carrying everywhere, I will then know how to deal with this larger world. I cannot say that I know how to deal with this world, but I don't know how to deal with this world. It doesn't work. The approach in Vedanta is always from inside out. And as they say, charity begins at home. If I have to, everything should begin, not telling others what they should do, I must see whether I'm doing it myself. So if I have to take care and protect other people, other things, first thing I should do is to say, am I able to take care and protect myself first? That's why, of course, as you know, the security instructions or whatever instruction they give when the plane is about to fly, it said if the air pressure becomes less, the oxygen masks will come down, and then first put the mask yourself and then put it if there's a little child or someone who needs help. So if I don't know how to put the mask myself, I won't be able to help anyone. If I don't know how to swim, if I cannot save myself from drowning, I won't be able to help anybody else either. And so that's the idea. So first, I'm already sustaining and protecting this body and mind. But right now I'm attached to it. If I emulate the example that Krishna gives here and take good care of, just like God is taking good care of the universe, protecting it without getting attached to it, I can take very good care and protect my own body and mind without getting attached to it. And to the extent I do it, I'm approaching that divine ideal. That's the goal. Any thoughts, questions? Yeah.
I think the statement when you said at the starting that God is not in the world or material world, isn't it that God is in us as a consciousness, or we don't have consciousness? Like God is inside us.
Who is this us? What is this
Me.
us?
Okay, for example, me. I believe that God is in me, who is directing to think about himself.
Okay, so what's your point?
Point is, you said that God is not in the material world.
Yeah.
Then I'm part of the material world. So if I say a statement that God is in me, is it wrong?
Yes. When you say God is in me, you're saying that because you have read it in a book. Right? Because when every breath you take, every step you take, are you aware that God is in me? No, you're not, right? When you are aware every moment that God is in me, what you will really be aware is I am that consciousness. It's not that this God is now, I'm like some container and then God is sitting here. That's not possible. I mean, God is infinite. You are finite. Your body and mind are tiny. How can, as Sri Ramakrishna says, that how can a 10-pound entity be fit into a 1-pound entity? So God is infinite. How can an infinite being be put inside a finite thing? Now you could, of course, use the same argument that I did. Well, really no, but apparently yes, right? So what I'm saying is that apparently means it's not real, first of all. But if you recognize that God is present in, then you will know that you and that God present in you are not two different things. Right now, when you say me, you are really referring to the body and mind. And if it's body and mind, the body and mind won't be able to talk. The body and mind is not conscious. You won't be able to even ask me a question if you're only a body and mind. Right? So it's the consciousness in you. So what is really, who is asking me a question now? I mean, like a Raman Maharshi, I could say. It's not just the body and mind. It couldn't be just pure consciousness either. But pure consciousness, I have no doubt about it. So it is this consciousness which has gotten identified, it has gotten attached to this body and mind, that is now asking this question. And so the answer is, stop getting attached to the body and mind, and then you will know that you are not inside anything. Not inside that body and mind, not inside anything. You are the infinite space. And every object is just like the wind going through this. And you are space. You are not attached to anything. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, but when we say that God comes as avatar to tell us, so what is happening actually? God is the consciousness entering the material world, or what's happening with avatars?
Well, God is entering the material world. Really? No. Apparently, yes. God is taking a human birth. Really? No. Apparently, yes. It's everything is apparently. Really, nothing had happened. Really, the infinite reality is just there. It's like, I mean, what has happened? You are there, suppose you are alone at home, and then you go to sleep. What is the reality? You are the only reality at home. You are the only being, and the only thing is you have fallen asleep. But in your dream, you are seeing dreams after dreams that night. And you see people and things, and you ask questions. How did this happen? Oh, this happened because of this. Really? No, not really. Really is only you are asleep. So just as in that scenario, the only reality is you fallen asleep. Everything else is a dream. And then when you wake up, all of those dreams disappear. So in some sense, if you want to put it more visually, you can say, God, fallen asleep. And then now dreams after dreams are emerging. And all the questions you are asking are in the dreams. The answer I'm giving you is in a dream. If you take these answers, I mean, Krishna is giving answers here. If you take these answers seriously, there is a chance you will wake up. If you don't take it seriously, you will say, oh, that's another theory. Who knows if it's true? That's just faith. And that's what people do. And Krishna will actually, in the later verse, mention that. So it's like this. If someone were to come in the dream and tell me, this is a dream, wake up. Well, I have a lot of choice. First of all, I'm not going to believe that person. Because in the dream, everything appears very real. But suppose I believe that, suppose I trust that person, who is also coming in the dream, that person also is a dream person. But that dream person is telling me the truth, that you are dreaming. And if I take those words to heart, and if I follow the instruction of that person, I will wake up. So right now, the Gita is part of the dream. Krishna, who comes and instructs us, is a part of the dream. Everything that the Gita says is part of the dream, just as our learning is part of a dream. We have a choice either to just kind of attain some intellectual stimulation out of it, or as most people do, they might read it and forget about it, or take this seriously. Yes, all this could be dream, but maybe it's telling me the truth. And then if I do what it says, I will wake up. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you.
Maharaj, I'm going back to that classic example, rope and snake. So like we cannot see rope and snake in the same time. So rope and snake is within us. Either we can be rope or we can be snake. So when we are snake material, even though we know theoretically that we are the rope, but we don't see as.
Sure.
Does it make sense?
Sure,
Yeah.
completely. Yeah, very good. Yeah, I mean, it's very good. I'm happy you mentioned that, because in the rope snake analogy is exactly what is happening here. It's a rope snake is happening objectively, you just make it subjective. Think about if a rope were a conscious being and the rope forgot that I am the rope, and a rope began to see itself as the snake. And then what else can you do? I mean, all that you can do is say, hey, you are not a snake, you're a rope, you're a rope. And one day the rope will take you seriously, and then do. Until that time, a rope is going to see itself. And that's exactly what has happened. Sure, good, yeah.
To this subject, the rope and the snake. So nothing is really happening. The rope is the rope, there is no snake. The whole thing is an error in perception on the part of the observer. And as soon as the lights are on, the observer sees better or sees more clearly, the idea of the snake disappears, and he knows that there's never been a snake. So is that consistent with the idea of this divine mystery is basically some grand error in perception on a huge scale?
Yes, the error exists as long as I see it. In other words, if you ask me, has this error actually happened? And there won't be any definitive answer. It's like, has the rope actually become a snake? No. But I cannot say no because I'm seeing it. Same way, although I said, oh, God has fallen asleep and then he's seeing all these dreams, that's my explanation for why this many seem to have come from the one. But when I wake up, it's not like, oh, I had fallen asleep. No, you'll just like, well, everything is just as it should be. That's how it is. So one question that can be asked is, when we speak about freedom, whose freedom? If I'm already free, then who is it that is becoming free? And the answer is, one who thinks I'm in bondage will become free. If I don't think I'm in bondage, then I'm already free. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just yeah.
I don't know if I can make this clear or not, but I think I've gotten more confused a little bit, because if we go back to verse 4, and it says, all this is pervaded by me of unmanifest form. Well, I sort of understood that, but I'm not sure where we've gone with verse 5. So an unmanifest form is sort of like in space. It is like space.
You could
it
say
is
in
space.
a subtle way, not in a. It's like it's like the cause being present in the effect, but you do not necessarily see the cause as it was.
Okay.
That's
so
in that sense.
I think I'm beginning to understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what you mean by saying, and all this is pervaded by me. So it's almost like saying, what makes the existence of the wind possible? Space. If there were no space, where would the wind be? So you could say that space is present in, and I'm not speaking about physical space, and this is just an idea. In the tiniest particle you can conceive of, the space is present. So God is therefore pervading entire creation, because the entire creation exists because of the presence of God. It's in that sense. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Vikram?
And if we if we layer this on another analogy commonly used of the ocean and water, that the nature of us beings are particles of water, though the true nature is really the same,
Little
different
waves,
from the ocean. So, how does that fit on these number 4 and 5 here?
I mean, it's like this. So you could say, when you say ocean, I mean, what is really the ocean? It's water, right? And then the water is present in the wave. So you could say the ocean is present, the water is present in that wave, which is nothing but water. So what distinguishes an ocean from a wave is just that and of course we are taking about some part of that wave or ocean is now taken some form and is moving in a certain way, and we call it a wave. But that water is essentially as much ocean water as any other ocean water is. So we could say that we are waves in this ocean of consciousness. And so we think, well, I'm a little wave, and you are a little wave, and you are a little wave. While at the back of us stands this big ocean. And that is why Swami Vivekananda's one famous statement was, look at the ocean, not the waves. There is, and we'll close quickly, but just one brief idea before we close. And we have referred to it on earlier occasion. It's this, that sometimes early in the morning, when you are going through a dream and you kind of become aware of waking up, but you don't make sudden movement, you're just kind of coming out of your sleep, but not fully. At such time, you are aware that you are dreaming, and at some time, I don't know whether I'm sure some of you at least may have experienced this. If it's an interesting part of the story, the dream is kind of, you're halfway through and and then you just allow yourself to just kind of remain a little bit, just to see what happens. Now that time, sometimes that kind of an experience is called a lucid dream. So what is really happening is, that point you have come to know it's a dream. So you know you are watching that dream, but you are also seeing yourself in that dream. Everything you are seeing in the dream is really your creation. You know it's a dream, but you have also become a small actor in that dream, while the real you is watching it. So it's in that sense, when we say the world is a dream, if I become aware that this is the dream, I can see myself in that dream. But I know that the real me is the one who is watching the dream. And this little me who is in this moving and acting and talking and doing everything in the dream is a part of that dream. But that's not the real me. The real me is the one who is watching this entire thing. And so this false me has gotten attached to this tiny little part, tiny little creature, and thinking it's me, while the real me is the one who is watching the dream. So does that make clear? So our ego is this entity which limits us, which attaches this infinite consciousness got attached to one little body and one little mind is the ego. Well, the Atman as the self is the real I, but that real I is not the ego. That real I is the one who is watching this entire dream. And in that dream, if you see yourself, that is the little ego. So the ego and the Atman couldn't be more different. That's the idea. Okay, if it's a small question, if it's a big one, we'll do it next time.
It's even a question. I totally. Oh, is that
Okay.
Thank you. I just totally agree with what you told. It's not question. I just thought about it. It's a lucky person when he can see inside this inner figure, this manas, ego, this combination, conceptual mind, which projected as all troubles for him.
Sure.
And it's lucky this person goes, oh my God, that's it. So then I can at least, for this situation, I can stop this troublemaker which is inside. That's what you told, that's which is wrong perception, everything create everything.
Yeah, good,
Yeah, so
very good.
totally
Good, yeah. Srikant wants.
It was just a follow-up question. So when we say everything is dream, nothing is real, so apparently...
Well, nothing is real, the dreamer is real.
Yeah, dreamer is real.
Yeah.
So even the suffering of the people, so we say that God takes out suffering and you become happy. So even suffering is apparently not real.
Well, I mean, as long as you're suffering, you cannot say you're not real. I mean, from the perspective of the dreamer sees it's only a dream. But if you don't know you are the dreamer, for you it's very real. And therefore, if you see suffering, you must try to go and eliminate that suffering. Try to help the person, because your dream help will remove the dream suffering. And if you don't do that dream help, then there is no help, no chance for you to wake up. So this way of thinking about everything is a dream is not a license to become insensitive to suffering. In fact, it calls us that if I go and help others who are suffering in a detached way, then I make it easier for me to wake up from the dream. If I don't help, if I don't do the right thing, if I don't do it, then I will get even more caught up in the dream. So in fact, it makes us more sensitive. It develops greater love and greater compassion. That's the idea.
Thank you.
So we'll stop here, and then when we meet next time, we will begin with verse number 7. Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. We bow down to Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. This Sunday, our subject will be where shall I stay? On Tuesday and Saturday, we'll continue with our Arati and meditation as usual. Next 2 weeks, next two Wednesdays, we will not have the meeting. So you'll have more opportunity to think about the dream. You can reflect on the dream for next 2 weeks, and then we will meet in the first week in May. So that's an opportunity to do so. So we'll conclude with a prayer now on page 3 of your books. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, Peace be unto all.